If you've been online lately, you've probably heard that running a business is super easy and anyone can do it. Well, that's complete nonsense. We're here to share with you the real world of entrepreneurship. Welcome to I Can't Hustle Any Harder Than This.
Hello and welcome to this episode of I Can't Hustle Any Harder Than This. I'm Rachael Wonderlin.
And I am Emily Naples.
And we are here with Matt Reiners. We're going to be talking all about ghosting, which is one of my favorite things to scream about. But first, let's hear from Matt.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. So Matt Reiners, currently Chief Growth Officer at Parasol Alliance. My background, I've helped build and had successful exits at 2 startups, primarily in the sales and marketing, business development, all those fun functions. So have seen a lot of ghosts in my day, and excited to kind of dive a little bit deeper into that here today.
You had a great post on LinkedIn. God, it was probably a year ago at this point, but you were talking about like, hey, ghosting's not nice. Don't do it. But it was a whole story. And I was like, yes, and I reposted it. And that's really what made me go, oh my God. You know, Matt can speak to a million different things with small business. We could have talked about business, like starting up, selling a business, but I think that ghosting is the hot topic that's worth hitting with this guest specifically.
Love it. So you were working for startups in this space.
He started
you started the startup.
He's the guy.
Hey yo, that sounds tough.
Yeah.
How do you do that?
It's well, the name of the podcast, right? You just hustle so hard so you can't hustle any harder.
That's right.
Yeah, and so like the startups were, so the first one was a silent disco company helping people throw silent discos around the country, which kind of then was an offshoot into a group wireless headphone system designed for senior living. So the last, 9 years have been spent in senior living. And startups are such a roller coaster ride of emotions. There's highs and lows that come, I find, like even within the same hour some days. And, it's definitely a grind, but it's fun and rewarding at the end of the day. And I lost all my hair doing it. So that was kind of what my sacrifice. But we're here today. Better person
Rachel,
because of it.
Do you know him via the senior aspect?
Mm-hmm. That's how we know each other, is senior living. We were, Matt's a big LinkedIn guy. I'm a big LinkedIn lady. So we know each other from there. And then we finally met in real life at a conference like 2 years ago. But that was the first time we actually met in real life.
And where are you, if you're willing to say?
Of course, I am in.
If you're willing to say, what do you think's going to happen?
I don't know.
Yeah, I'll give my address and my social security number, and I think that's the next question, right? So I'm in Syracuse, New York. I've been living here for about a year and a half. Before that, spent about 10 years in the Boston area.
Cool, very cool. So what made you decide? Well, first of all, we need to talk about this silent disco. We just whatever. We need to talk about that. But what did make you start in this way? Like, what made you, had you had a job where you applied 9 to 5 and then said, you know what, it's business time? And then how did you determine that was the first business?
It's business time.
Wow, I got to put that on a t-shirt. That was great. So and for just purposes to kind of share. So I'm 35 now. When I was 22, 23, I was basically a glorified personable robot. I was a telemarketer at like a Fortune 500 company. And my best friend from growing up, shout out Jake Reich, he had approached me. He used to sit in front of me in homeroom, played baseball together, was the best man at my wedding. He was still a college student, and he had approached me and to help him start this company, which was basically helping people around the country throw silent discos. We did not come up with the concept, just kind of saw some industry trends that were happening in Europe, saw an opportunity to just do it here and not so much focus on the production side, but just the dry hire side. So it was all like an SEO AdWords play. So people would just reach out to us, requesting quotes, information. And then from there, I try and call them within 5 minutes, just because I've read all the studies about the power of that and would drive business that way. And so, we grew that company successfully year over year. It's still in operation. We sold that back in 2019. But out of that company, a few things happened simultaneously that really introduced me to the senior living industry, where we started getting phone calls from senior living communities asking for help. Hearing was such a big problem in a group setting. Think resident council meetings, bingo, worship services, right? Everybody's hearing's all over the place. So they needed a system with individual volume control designed for a group setting, which was essentially a silent disco system. And it was around this time when I saw my grandmother was going through. She was 93 in an AL in New Jersey, and honestly, her quality of life sucked. She wouldn't go to anything, wouldn't do anything, and a lot of stemmed from the philosophy of, I can't hear what's going on, so why bother? And Jake and I, probably 24, 25 at this time, not knowing any better, just started walking into senior living communities in the area. Probably walked in, 100, 150 of them, just doing discovery meetings, demos, and we would have residents coming up and thanking us. I know one gentleman, Vern Rockcastle, still sits with me from a Kendall community. He had approached us and said that he'd been going to this resident council meeting for 7 years, and after using our headphones, it was the first time he was able to hear every single word. And we just kept seeing really just moving experiences like that, like staff crying because they haven't seen their residents disengaged, people thought to be nonverbal, living with dementia or Alzheimer's. We're singing and speaking again, which I'm sure we've all seen the Alive Inside video. And we were like, holy crap, we can create a business, do some good around that. And that was about 2016. So grew that to about 1,500 communities before we were acquired by Uniguest in May of 2023.
Wow.
Yeah, I remember that was pretty recent that you all got acquired.
We should link to that Alive Inside video.
So you called people within 5 minutes. At the start of this, you are hustling hella hard because that's the only thing you can do. You start the silent disco, which of course evolves into this amazing company and product, but you're starting out, you're probably just sitting around in, your own bedroom, right? Or whatever, an office. And somebody submits a ticket to learn more. You call them within 5 minutes, Matt. What do you say? What is your pitch to them?
Yeah, so at the silent disco side, it's like, hey, is this, I ask, confirm it's the person. They're always, everyone's a little bit hesitant and on guard. I'm like, hey, I just saw you submitted a quote through our website. Is this a good time to chat? And then just kind of walk them through that. I would call people at 10 o'clock on Sundays. If I saw the lead come through and I thought it was a reasonable time just to give them a call, just, speed to lead was super important. I've read the studies around that and really try to practice that. I do think it was a blessing and a curse. Blessing that it helped us to win business because, of getting back to them so quickly, but also it kind of put me into this reactive mode where I would be checking my emails constantly, phone constantly, right? Of course, set up some alerts that would make sense. But so it was all about that because I would realize some of these other groups would take days to get back to these people and people need to make a decision within 24 hours. So we try to do that pretty quickly.
I think that's the big thing about sales. I mean, for us, we even got a comment recently from a current client. She is in the regional side at Claiborne Senior Living. And she said, I so appreciate that you and Natalie get back to me within a matter of an hour most of the time. She said, a lot of our vendors will take days. It'll take days to hear back from people. But she said, you get back to us really quickly. And that's valuable. Because I want to treat people the way I want to be treated. And I freaking hate when you reach out to somebody and it's nothing.
Yeah.
And you're like, did I send this to the wrong email? Did this disappear into the void? Did you fall off a cliff?
And no, that's not the reason.
That 99% of the time they did not fall off a cliff. They're just straight up
jerks.
They're just not responding to you, which drives me nuts. And when you're in a small business, so much of it is sales. And so much of what I'm sure Matt has done over the years is sales. And I'm very good at sales, but I don't actually like it. Matt, do you like sales or are you a sales guy? Do you love sales?
I love building relationships and solving problems. I think when I was first introduced to sales at this Fortune 500 company, it was a very shady view of it. The best person in our department was basically quoted as saying, if you can't book them, because we were booking outside sales appointments for people. He said, if you can't book them, just confuse them. And I was just like, that just seems so weird to me. And then
What does
I
that
remember
mean?
talking to my so basically just confuse them in the appointment, right? Just like, oh yeah, no, we have to have this appointment. Like, we handle your payroll. Like, you've got to talk to us about X, Y, and Z, and just like kind of bully them into it. And like, I remember I was at my good friend from college, Jim Lappin. He was coaching like rec basketball league, and I went to one of his games because I live nearby, and his dad was there, and his dad was a career sales guy, and he knew I was in sales, and I remember him asking me, he's like, you know, how's your experience been so far? Like, are you enjoying it? And I kind of shared this view of him that kind of like, you know, to me, right, try to be a good person, and I remember sharing like my views to him, and he was like flabbergasted. He's like, Matt, that's not what sales is about. Sales is becoming a friend with these people. It's about solving their problems. It's being a helper and like bringing their company to new heights. And like, it really just changed my view of like what sales could be. And so like during, you know, trying to build my own sales teams and all that stuff, it's something that I try to like incorporate into that, right? Like, we're not going to be the used car salesperson and kind of defeat that view, but like, we're going to tell people we're not a right fit. We're going to help people and ultimately try and do what's in their best interest. And if it makes sense to work with them, great. If not, you know, we'll be helpful in other ways and try to just be a good human and change the way we think about how we work with salespeople.
Wow.
That is wild. Like, trick them into getting a call with you.
Sad. So
It is.
we've been talking for a while, but the silent disco, is that just when everyone listens to it on their own?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, exactly. So it's a party where there's no out loud music and everything is being played through wireless headphones. So it's like the most absurd thing you would come across, but like people are like it for like get around noise restrictions or brand pop-up events. And like, we've had our gear in a couple of Netflix shows, a couple of other TV shows. So yeah, it was a cool ride. And I always like to joke that, you know, we went from one level of drug use with the silent disco rave soon to another level of drug use in senior living communities. So
I love it. I condone both.
I condone both.
And then, what was I going to ask you? What you're in now, dive in a little bit more for me, detail wise, the services.
Yeah, so Parasol
you still using
Alliance
headphones?
is
Talk to me.
Currently I am, but so Parasol Alliance is a technology partner. So we're fully managed services provider for IT and technology, but really helping senior living communities to be proactive in their technology adoption and using it as an ROI generator versus, you know, a big time suck and all that stuff. So really helping people be there because, you know, after I resigned from my position, kind of looked at the entire industry, and all these technology providers and vendors were kind of struggling with the same thing. So went to a group where we're owned by 5 senior living communities and really trying to help communities be forward thinking with their technology adoption. Because a lot of them just don't have the team to do that, right? They do care, resident experiences really well, and technology has kind of fallen by the wayside. So we come in and help to put those pieces together. And I'm their chief growth officer. So my first goal was to grow my hair back. Obviously that did not work, but you know, I oversee sales, marketing, business development, awareness. So, you know, still sales, marketing, all that fun stuff is in my responsibilities today.
Maybe that'll be your third business, like a pair of headphones that grow back hair.
Oh.
I'm gonna go trademark that and right after this call. But yeah.
You can't get the trademark. He's gonna get it.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to pivot into
Trademark,
what
IP,
I
I'll
really
get all this stuff.
Fair.
into what I really wanted to talk about on this episode, right? I want to hear some of your stories, Matt, about ghosting. What prompted you even to write that LinkedIn post that you wrote like a year ago that I saw? And I was like, yeah.
What post?
It's a
It
great.
was this post that I mentioned earlier. So it was a post where he was complaining about, in a good professional way, about ghosting and how it's rude, right? And how it's like, you know, don't leave people hanging. Just say no. Just say no instead of just,
Yeah.
what is
okay.
that Simpsons meme?
Oh, yeah,
Where
Homer
he's like
goes-
going into
Yeah,
the
yeah.
bush. That's
So I just had to go back and find it. I think what prompted that was my wife was in like the buyer's role and was making a decision between a few companies and wanted to clearly work with one, but didn't know how to handle the other two that she wanted to say no to. And, I can't marry a ghoster, right? Like
No.
yeah, that would make me reconsider my marriage. But it was kind of, talking her through that, which then prompted kind of that post of like my own experiences with ghosting. And like, I think especially small businesses, salespeople, whatever, your kind of focus is, time is our most important asset, and understanding where we need to be spinning our wheels with, right? Like where are there real opportunities is so, so important. And like, I've been ghosted hundreds, if not thousands of times. I think more so now in the senior living industry than in the past company. And I just think
Senior
people
living
are too
is
nice and are
ghosty.
afraid.
Yeah.
Very ghosty.
They
And
become
I have
ghosts. Sorry. Continue.
that was spicy. I think it comes down to people are just afraid to say no. They don't want to be thought of as different, being mean almost when they're saying it. So like when I get a hard no from someone, I go over the top to thank them. And like I'm just so appreciative of that. Just to like understand like what that actually means, because I know not to waste time with that person, right? Like if there's and I hate when ghosting happens when like there's obviously a clear problem that you can help with. There might have even been some like verbal of what that can look like. I mean, I've got stories for days around this stuff, but like, and then they just fall off the face of the earth. And like, but the good person in me is like, are they okay? Like, did something happen? I'm like Googling their name for like car accidents or if they got arrested.
I've done the
and stuff, and,
same
like,
thing.
yeah.
I've done
so
the
it's
same
like,
thing where I'm like looking somebody up. Like the worst are the ones where you have a really great conversation. And to your point, Matt, it's like they have a problem that you can solve and that you are like excited about solving for them. And, you get this feeling like I'm at the point, with my business, I've been doing this for so long that I don't really put any eggs in any baskets. I don't put the cart before the horse, to use all these expressions. But there are times where I'm like, oh, I really think that this is going to work out. And then they just dip. You send them the follow-up email, maybe they respond to it, and then you never hear from them again. And, weeks will go by, months will go by, and then sometimes they resurface, and it sort of leaves you with this, like, wait a second, how long should I follow up? Like, how long should I be chasing people? Because then they do resurface, and it's sort of this intermittent reinforcement where you go, okay, I guess I do have to, like, keep chasing someone. So it is so much better to just get a no. If someone's like, no, not a not right now, but a hard no.
I love a hard no. We die by maybes, right? And we die by that silence. And like, it's so tough. Like I remember one time, so this was back in my Eversound days where there was a management group that was taking over, the managing rights of a couple of properties. A few of those properties had Eversound. I had chatted with them, met their CEO and COO at a conference, kind of just like introduced myself, right? Like wasn't salesy, just be like, hey, we're here to help. They're like, hey, we actually saw Eversound in action. We were touring these communities. Looks like an awesome thing. Definitely like, improving quality of life. Can use it as a differentiator. Like we want to roll this out to our other 8 buildings. And from my perspective, like, awesome, that's great. Like, what do you need from us? And I was like, all I need is like the community names and a contact person, point of contact, and then I can update the agreements and send that along. And I was told this was a Thursday afternoon. She said, great, I'll get those to you first thing in the morning on Friday morning. I still haven't heard from her, and this was 4 years ago. And it always like, and I think earlier on struggled that I defined my self-worth by that. I was like, what did I do wrong? Like, what happened? I know people get busy, and like for me, this is everything, right? This is everything that I'm doing. To them, it's just another thing that they're doing. I still don't know the answers to that of like what happened with that one. That was a person I was Googling, like make sure they're okay. And like, I think I actually even reached out to one of her colleagues to be like, hey, is she okay? Like, I just like not even trying to drive the sale, just like worried about her well-being. But like, there's just been too many times I think where that happens, where I think, and I think from their perspective, right, from the buyer side, giving that no gets us off their back of continuously following up, and they've got to feel guilty at some level, right? Like, I got to give props to the people, again, who I get the hard nose. They're more on the sales side, I find, because they understand
Yes.
the process and are willing to give that and not feel like a bad person. Like, just because you say no doesn't make me think of you differently. Like, yeah, of course I want to work with you, but I'd rather hear that than just like a super excited, like verbal commitment and then nothing. And
100%.
yeah, it's
So you follow, I'm sure you followed up a bunch with this woman who disappeared. At what point on that Friday did you reach out to her and go, hey, you were going to send that over?
Oh, I think I pinged her that Friday probably 3 times, and then like, you know, and I'll attack ghosts one way or another. I mean, like different, right? I don't think every ghost is the same.
Yes.
But with her, I probably pinged her like 20 times after that, and then like eventually just sent a breakup email, just being like, hey, like, obviously this it's not the right timing for you guys. If something changes, let me know, and then just try to like follow up quarterly from there and get them back into that cadence. But eventually just threw in the towel because I didn't want to spend any more. I cried enough about it, right? And I was over it, so just kind of kept it moving after that.
It is so much better to just get a hard no than a yeah, later, or a complete, like, just they completely disappear after a great conversation. You know, because you get emotionally invested, and to your point, like, this is what you're doing. This is the whole thing
Right.
you're working on. They have other things going on. But when they do resurface and they say something like, oh, I'm sorry, we've just been so busy. It's like, you couldn't take 10 seconds to shoot me an email?
Right. I have a question as a doing the things you guys do. Percentage wise, and I'm sure this changed, but like, what percentage of people that you reach out to just don't answer versus engage and are successful versus do what you guys are talking about right now? I'm sure that's changed over your careers, but like, what would you say? And if you don't know,
Are these cold leads like someone we reach out to? Because there's a difference between like reaching out on LinkedIn as like a cold lead,
yeah,
and they just don't say anything, versus like, you know, which is probably like 80%, right? But like reaching out to someone, having a great conversation, and then they disappear. I don't know. I mean, it might even be like 50%. What do you think, Matt?
Yeah, so I think it's good to define the type of lead. I think where I see it happening most frequently is after a conference where, you know, and I do think people are so nice to your face, right? And like show such a level of excitement there, and, you know, ask for a clear next step, kind of do that, and then just kind of, again, fall off the face of the earth after that. I see that happening the most, is where I tend to see that happening, where, you know, I think it's tough to put a percentage. I think, you know, earlier on, it was probably higher that I would see it, but I've kind of learned some tricks and best practices over the years to try and prevent it to the best of my ability. It still happens, but it's tough to put a percentage to of like what that actually looks like.
What are some of those
Okay.
tips and tricks? I mean, I've started calling it out before it happens. So I will even say on a call with somebody when the call's going well, you know, sometimes after a call, I'll be following up and I don't hear anything back. And I will straight up say it now. And I think that having that helps. Matt, what are your tips and tricks?
Yeah, so in that first call at the end, I'll basically say something to the effect of, "Hey, can I ask you just like a quick favor?" And they'll be like, "Sure." I'll be like, and I'll just be like, "Can you, you know, I'm not saying you will, but can you just please not ghost me?" And I'll like, if you want me to kick rocks, just tell me that. I won't be upset.
I love
And, like,
that,
almost try
Matt.
to
I
hit
love
it
that.
I hit it on. Yeah, I hit it on with like direct, with like some humor, just because like that's more so my personality. But try to like really just engage that and set the expectation so that I can always bring it back if they do ghost me. I was like, hey, I thought you promised you wouldn't ghost me. If now's not the time, just tell me that, right? So I try to hit it head on that first call at the end.
this is taking me back to online dating, guys. I'm not gonna lie.
Yes, let's hear about that.
Nah, we're talking biz. We're talking business.
No, but there is. It's a similar thing to dating.
Yeah.
It's a similar thing where you're like, ooh, we had a great first connection. We're talking. It seems like it's going to go somewhere. We seem like we're on the same page. And then maybe you have a second date, as it were. You have a follow-up call. And then they say something on the call where you're like, oh,
Yeah.
no.
Right.
or they just straight up disappear.
Or vice versa. Like, it's funny listening to you guys because I'm like, oh, I probably
Are you a ghoster?
would ghost if I were, be like, I'm just busy. They don't need my...
It's just so avoidant. And like, it's at the point where like,
That is my personality. But that's why I don't own a business and you guys do.
you're less avoidant than some people I know. And like the people who are super, super avoidant, I have so much trouble spending time with because to me, it is such an obnoxious personality trait that even when I see myself doing it, like a friend invites me to something and I can't go or don't want to go, I'll feel myself go, I'll just wait like a little bit before I reply. And then I'm like, wait a second. Why am I waiting to reply? I know I don't want to go to that thing. I will just be honest. Me waiting an hour is only going to make me more anxious because I'm not responding. And it's not doing them a favor. They could use that time to invite another friend to go with them.
Yeah.
And so I think about that. I'm very conscious of that because I freaking hate when people just dip or you just never hear from somebody again. I hate it.
Yeah. If there's anyone listening out there who knows the psychology of avoidance and business ownership, that would be quite interesting.
That would be great to have them on. If that's you, let us know.
But I bet it won't be as good as this episode has been.
No. Matt, what else, as we're kind of, wrapping up this episode, what else can you share with us about this topic or really any other topic that you want to mention?
Well, I know we had mentioned like the ghosting and dating, and my dating strategy was basically to marry my first Tinder date. So I feel like that worked out great for me.
How?
Yeah.
Well, obviously
Is that
it worked
true?
out. That's true.
It is
That's
true.
true.
It's
She was your
very true.
first Tinder date.
Wow.
I was hers too, supposedly. But yeah, we were each other's first Tinder dates, and we.
That is like the
that's how the
equivalent to
algorithm's
high
supposed to
school
work, right?
sweethearts now. Sorry, interrupt you. I said that's like
Yeah, no,
high
you're
school
good, you're good.
sweethearts, first Tinder dates. Sorry, what were you saying?
So you went on a date. You met her on Tinder. You connected on Tinder. How does this work? Is that a swipe thing? That's a swipe thing.
Yeah.
So it was in the early days. So we're celebrating 10 years together, not married, but 10 years dating a month from now. But
wow,
she did ghost me on the platform for a little bit before we met up. But yeah, so we had our first date and haven't stopped talking since. So yeah, and
were
I am
you
a
like
success story.
you went on this date? What was your first date, Matt? What'd you do? Where'd you guys go?
So we were both living in Ithaca, New York at the time, and we went to like a local bar and then bar hopped to a couple places, and then yeah, and that was it.
And then they went to a silent disco, and he's like, "Check me out! I did this.
I did this.
And I was just hypnotizing her through the music, because that's how it typically goes. So yeah.
Were you like on that first date? Were you like, she's the one?
Yeah.
I'm closing
100%.
this deal.
Yeah. I just remember
has
her
to
like
say that
walking
now.
into the room. Yeah. Yeah. I remember her like just walking in the room, and like I was taken aback. She just like lit up everything, and but then she kind of put me through a job interview. Like one of the questions she asked was, "Give me 3 reasons why I should keep talking to you." And I was like, "Okay."
Good for her. Wait, what were your reasons? Do you remember?
I'm trying to. I know one of them was that I was like, hey, I have a lot of friends that are girls that are strictly platonic. So like, there's a good group of friends that I have from college that like are girls. You'll hear about them, but they're just friends. I put the salesman. I think the other thing was that during college, because maybe a couple years out, I was like, I worked at a daycare on campus. And I think the other one was that, that I was basically broke because I was bartending part-time and making no money from my business at that point. So,
And there were these were the reasons that she should keep talking to you?
I think I sounded very confident when I said it, and, had a charismatic way about me when I did it. So I think that's what kept her coming back. So, yeah.
And that's why you're a successful business owner. Boom.
Yeah. That was like, yeah, you closed that deal. Your first Tinder date. That's actually pretty wild. I know, plenty of people go through many, many, many Tinder and otherwise like dating apps before they meet anybody. So it's actually kind of wild that your first Tinder date.
I love it.
Do you get off the app immediately? You went on that date and you were like, I'm off this app, close it.
I don't think I deleted it immediately, but very shortly after. Yeah.
You were mad at me for talking about the headphones for too long. Look at you being like, let's talk dating apps.
Well, there's a lot of overlap between like relationships, like outside of business, and business relationships. I feel so much like when I'm following up with people that I'm like, are we gonna be together? Do you like me? Like I do. There's a dating aspect to like talking to somebody on the phone because you're feeling each other out. Like, can this work? There is so much overlap. I think that's why.
Okay. I'm still learning.
I think a case could be made too. Everything I learned from selling and being ghosted, I just incorporated it into my dating life to make sure that never happened. So,
Let's wrap on that.
Yeah, that's deep.
Thank you, Matt. Thanks for being here, having this great conversation, telling us about your dating experiences too, because that's fun. That's good stuff.
Valentine's Day. It's a perfect day for it.
It's Valentine's Day. It is Valentine's Day. Yeah,
Happy
that's
Valentine's
true.
Day, everyone.
Happy Valentine. Well, when they listen to it, it won't be Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
But still, it's in our hearts. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks for being here.